In today's video, I'm going to be explaining exactly what you need to know to buy the dip. Bitcoin falls, stocks fall, bonds fall. Should you be buying more? Will you need to take on more risk? We're going to go through all of that today, right now. What does it really mean to take on more risk? Today, I'm going to be reading How to Actually Buy the Dip. So this is a newsletter called The Joint Account by Heather and Douglas Boneparth. This is a little bit more on the personal finance side of things, not necessarily directly to do with Bitcoin, but I still thought it was interesting. I still think it's interesting. I still think it's useful, and we can figure it out. So it's titled How to Actually Buy the Dip. Bet you weren't expecting that one, but now that I've got you, have you heard of BitWriters, your Bitcoin-focused ghostwriting agency? They've got over 6 years experience building up blogs, newsletters, and educational email courses. Cause not your email, not your audience, not your customers. Link in the description below. You already know the words tariff and trade war are dominating the financial discourse right now. And with those words, an all too familiar mix of economic uncertainty and added stress risk bleeding into our lives. Markets have responded the way markets do when we're hit with large unexpected events. They fucking drop quickly and significantly. For many investors, that drop triggers a deep and primal anxiety. Call it fear, call it instinct, call it your animal spirits, i.e. your inner squirrel hoarding acorns. But the point is that most people want to do something when faced with that falling sky feeling. More often than the experts would probably like to see, that something is panic selling in an attempt to stop the bleeding. I know I've fallen victim to this over my life. I know my parents have fallen victim to this over their life. My mom used to own, I don't remember what stock it was, but it dropped heavily, and she called up her bank executive or some brokerage, and she's like, I want to sell. And the brokerage was like, this is the worst time to sell. Don't do it now. Don't have to buy anything, but just don't do it now. You are panic selling because you think that by offloading it, you're going to get rid of that sort of, what they're saying, visceral feeling. You know, that how do I stop this? By completely eliminating it from my life, when that's not necessarily the way it has to go. Sometimes you have to face it. Face up. Trust me when I say it, Heather and Douglas, I get it. But selling when your portfolio is down often means locking in losses that might have been only temporary. You turn a paper loss into a real one and dig yourself a hole that's much harder to get out of. For financial advisors like me, says Douglas, selling at the bottom is a cardinal sin, aka big no-no. But today, we're going to focus on the other end of the spectrum of investors, charging toward the market, yelling, buy the dip, like they're fans storming the court after the Florida Gators NCAA's men's basketball national championship win. You knew I would. I'm guessing he's a Florida Gators fan, and he had to put it there. Might have been a little bit more nuanced. Not nuanced, but might have been something to go with the old storming something else in the U.S. You knew I would. Same market, same headlines, very different reactions. Some people are driven by their fears, others are driven by opportunity. So here's the truth. Saying buy the dip is easy. Actually buying the dip, that's more complex, especially when you don't have a plan or any rules in place. This is important to keep in mind. I see it all the time on Twitter. Bitcoin falls, buy the dip. Everybody is out there buying the dip. You're a fucking idiot if you don't buy the dip. You're a bear if you don't buy the dip. Well, number one, I'm hesitant to think that everybody out there who's saying buy the dip is buying the dip. And number two, like Douglas is saying, how much money do you have to allocate to buy it?
Do you want to buy it all in one go? Are you planning on spreading it out? Do you have a plan so that if it falls 5%, you buy a certain amount? If you buy 10%, if it falls 10%, you buy double the amount. If it falls 20%, you buy double the amount again. Things to keep in mind, you know? So Douglas wants to make this more manageable for you and your partner because the joint account is a little bit of marriage counseling for financially adept and adapted people, whatever the fuck that means. So even though I'm not a huge baseball fan, we're going to work off a simple baseball analogy because it's a pretty universal way to make this sense. Let's take it step by step. Base by base. First base, staying the course. This is the most important base, a baseline, if you will. If you have a long-term investment strategy, which you should, and time is on your side, which you will, the absolute last thing you want to do is sell into this chaos. Why? Because you're more likely to miss the rebound than to perfectly time your exit and reentry. Also, if you're buying and holding for years or decades, then you shouldn't be worried about the ups and downs of the market right now. This goes both ways. You shouldn't be worried about it if you're buying, and you shouldn't be worried if you're selling. Find what you want to buy or what you want to do. I want to be able to buy my family a trip to Greece for 2 weeks in the summer. You hit that threshold, then you sell because you've got a goal in mind. Or you're buying for 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it dips or goes up, but you've got a clear set in place. Every 4th of every month, I buy a certain amount of Tesla or Apple or Nvidia or whatever the fuck you want. Even if you do manage to sell before things get worse, when will you plan to buy back in? Most investors don't. They sit on the sidelines watching the market recover without them, paralyzed by the fear that they'll re-enter at the wrong time. Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me more than once. By the way, have you subscribed? Can you do me a favor? Stop the video, click subscribe, click the notification button because some people aren't getting alarmed or alarm bells that tell them that there's a new episode coming up. I would really appreciate it. Back to Hartford Fund research, missing just the 10 best days in the market over a 20-year period can cut your returns in half. Half, he says, with italics and an exclamation point. First base is about staying grounded. It's table stakes for every investor. If you're feeling rattled, talk to a financial professional, preferably not the YouTube guru telling you to move everything into precious metals, because gold might be going up, but there's not much return to it. We're equipped with the tools to help guide you through almost any situation. And after you hit the ball and you pass first base, where do you go? Second base, rebalancing your portfolio. This is where things get a little bit more tactical. Let's say your portfolio was 80-20, stock to bonds, but after the recent drop, it's now sitting closer to 70-30. When you rebalance your portfolio, you're selling some of your relatively safer investments, i.e. the bonds, and rotating back into more risky discounted investments, stocks. You're not chasing the dip. You're just realigning back to your target allocation while taking advantage of discounted stock prices. It's an intentional move that keeps your investment plan on track. This is, again, going to be flying in the face of that primal fear you're going to be feeling, because even if it flows into something a little bit more balanced, so to speak, it's misaligned with what your ultimate goals are. And having an 80-20 moving into 70-30 will make it more risky, so to speak, because you're not aligning to yourself to what your goal or your metric or your objective or the end sight is. By the way, you can accomplish this without tax consequences if you're doing it within your retirement accounts. So when you're talking about investments outside your retirement accounts, you have to be careful because rebalancing can realize capital gains, which can trigger you to own taxes on those gains. So be strategic. Think about shit beforehand. Talk to somebody, whether it's these guys, your partner, your buddy, your friend, the YouTube guru, which isn't me. I'm just a YouTube guy. I'm probably not going to be able to help you because, for one, I'm not a financial advisor, But number two, I have completely different goals in mind. I have completely different risk profile in mind. I have probably completely different bank account that I can deploy capital with.
Did you see that? You should subscribe.
A small dwindling one, as us journalists tend to have, alas. Not victimizing myself, just putting it out there. Third base, increasing your risk tolerance. This is a more aggressive play that only makes sense for certain people at certain times. Let me explain, he says. In our forthcoming book, we present the difference between risk appetite and risk capacity. Your risk appetite is how you feel about risk. It's personal to you and often comes from the lessons you've learned and things you've experienced in your life. Two people in a committed relationship can have wildly different appetites for risk, and that's hard to deal with. I won't spill more, because otherwise you might not hire him, but just know this is what you need to compromise around. Your risk capacity is how much risk you can actually handle as a couple. This is a collaborative assessment, meaning it doesn't matter if one of you wants to be a stock market cowgirl. You shouldn't be taking on more risk at a time when, for example, you're approaching a major life goal or are fighting for financial stability. You should try to never be fighting for financial stability, but I understand it's hard sometimes not to be able to do it. I've been there. I'm sure a lot of people have been there. I'm actually interested, if you've ever fought for financial stability, what you've done to get yourself back on your feet. Have you gotten a second job? Have you asked somebody for money? Have you reinvested? I'm interested in finding out what people are doing to be able to get on stronger footing. Risk is emotional and logistical, which is exactly why you need to talk to your partner about it in detail. Are you aligned in how much risk you're comfortable with? Do you have the same outlook on the future? What would a worst case scenario feel like for each of you? I feel like these are great questions just to ask yourself in day-to-day life, whether that's to do with jobs or sports or moving houses or cities or anything. The conversations we tend to avoid around risk are often the ones that matter most, especially when markets are volatile and emotions run high. Don't turn away and lose the plot altogether. Face them head first. Like the great Tim Ferriss says, your success in life can be measured by the amount of uncomfortable conversations that you've had or that you're willing to have. I remember when I read that lives rent-free in my mind. And I know that every time I'm struggling with something and I need to talk to somebody about something that's going to be a bit uncomfortable, a bit not entirely funky about or very funky about, I just think to myself, life, I'm going to measure my success in life because of this. And that helps me. It doesn't help the conversation become easier. It just helps me initiate the conversation. Just like have it and things will be fine. Anyways, if you do decide it's appropriate to increase your risk tolerance, what that means is you're doing more than rebalancing your portfolio like you did at second base. Here, you're leaning into that risk. Let's say you were at 80-20 and you're considering a move to 90-10, stocks v bonds. You're intentionally increasing the percentage of stocks in your portfolio because you believe they're on sale and your time horizon can handle the bumps in the road and the markets along the way to your long-term goals. This is easier for younger investors with more time on their side, but isn't completely off the table for older, more conservative investors either. Increasing your risk might sound exciting, especially when things feel on sale, but it requires clarity and honestly consent. Not just yours, but your partner's too. Talk about it before you do it. This is an opportunity to learn how the other person got here and decide how together you should move forward. And then rounding across third, you bunted your way. Bunt won't round you around third, but you hit it straight smack dab. It popped off the bat. Beautiful pop. Into the left corner field. And you're rounding for home plate, deploying more cash into the markets. Now, finally, we've made it to what most people mean when they say buy the dip. If you've been sitting on excess cash, either because you're naturally conservative or cheap, or were saving to invest over time, this might be the moment. Markets have dropped, valuations are lower, your capital is available, and your capital gets you further. You get more bang for your buck just like that. Remember, cash reserves aren't just there for emergencies. They're also there for opportunities. Fuck. Great idea, thoughts, framing, great framing. But before you deploy a single dollar, you need to feel comfortable with income and job stability, family dynamics, health and health insurance, and overall financial situation. These factors will help guide you to determine how much of your reserve, if any, you feel comfortable using to invest. I still believe everyone should have between 6 and 9 months of their living expenses held in cash, but that's just me. I lean to the 3 to 6 months in cash. And cash is cash in the bank, liquid. Let's say you have an emergency, car breaks down or something, or you lose your job and you need to cover yourself, and it's not that easy right now because we might be heading into a recession. Got to have that moolah waiting for you. If you're already dollar cost averaging into the market, i.e. investing a set amount on a regular basis, you might consider accelerating that timeline. For example, if you had planned to invest a lump sum of cash over 6 months, maybe you speed it up to 3 months, essentially increasing your exposure while prices are down. But when do I buy the dip is the final and foremost question, and actually the hardest part. Timing the market is notoriously difficult, if not impossible, which is why they say time in the market beats timing the market. This goes out to friends and family who are always asking me when is a good time to buy something, and I always say yesterday. And when's the second best time? Today. We don't know what the price of anything is going to be tomorrow. We don't know if it's going to be up, going to be down. Time in the market beats timing the market every fucking day of the week. So instead of trying to call the bottom or aim for the top, use drawdowns as a reference point. A drawdown is the percentage that an investment or market falls from its most recent peak to its lowest point. It's measuring how much value has temporarily been lost before a potential recovery. For example, in a letter to my clients during the COVID crash in 2020, I encouraged them to think in terms of drawdown floors. If the market, for example, the S&P 500 is down 20%, that's a potential signal. Down 30%, maybe another. Down 40%, you get the idea. These are subjective entry points, not predictions. They're psychological landmarks that help you say, okay, I've seen enough, I'm ready. Making it to second base and rebalancing your portfolio, especially in retirement accounts, can be done sooner rather than later. No need to wait for an even bigger dip to make a prudent move. Remember, you can be prudent while buying things on discount. But for bigger moves, like increasing your risk and deploying fresh cash, third base, home base is scoring. Set your thresholds and talk through them with someone you trust. You don't have to guess. You just need a rule, and perhaps the most important thing of all, the courage to execute. Buying the dip doesn't have to be a solo act of bravery. In fact, it shouldn't be. Your investment decisions affect your household and the people in it. So, before you swing for the fences, take time to talk through your feelings with your partner and your plan. Know what base you're actually on, and know that just making it to first is a win in and of itself. Banger article. I thought this was really nicely written. I think this is super prescient. I think this is super important to keep in mind. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd also like to continue on with the baseball analogy. Let me know what base you're on. Are you in the process of rebalancing your portfolio? Are you still trying to figure out what kind of investments you can do or you feel comfortable with? Because maybe 80-20 doesn't sound all right. You just want to invest in your first stock for the first time. Are you in there? What are you feeling when you're doing that? What are you feeling when you bought your first fraction of a Bitcoin? Where's it going? Or are you rounding for second or rounding for third? Have you had these conversations with your loved one, cherished one, half an orange? Yeah, I'm interested and I'm intrigued. I find personal finance fascinating, sometimes on par with Bitcoin and crypto, because it touches on like some deep rooted fears and emotions and excitement, and it makes us antsy but adrenaline, and it releases all sorts of chemicals in our brain. And yeah, it's brilliant, super interesting. So let me know what you think of everything that we've spoken about today. It's been a pleasure. Catch you next time. Choose your news. Let me know what you think.